Okay. Welcome to Yin. Before you get totally settled in, we're going to open up our blankets. Open it all the way up. You're like, no, I want to rest on it. Let me grab you another blanket so you've got one for the head. You're welcome. Open it all the way up and then kind of bunch it together so it's nice and long. And then what we're going to do is slide the center of that little bunching over the inner arch of the foot. Just like that. And then reach underneath the leg and pull the strap, the edge of it, through the center. And then we'll do that on the other side. I've got a little bolster to kind of support through the heart. Block, no block. Bolster's optional. As we lower back down, we can gather the ends of the blanket to help draw the feet a little bit closer to the body. With the chill in the air, it might feel nice to spread out the ends of the blankets over the leg, over the belly. A little bit of soothingness from the heaviness of the blanket. And then however your upper body lands, let it be comfortable. Maybe you keep the blanket under the head, maybe you rest on the bolster. And then practice arriving into this moment. Noticing the breath coming in. Noticing the breath going out. An invitation to really zoom in on the breath, feeling the breath, noticing the rise and the fall of the chest. And then pay such close attention to the breath that you might start to notice a pause. Sometimes it's easier to find the pause between the exhalation and the inhalation. Although a lot of times you might just feel it from the inhale to the exhale. The body naturally has a pause through the breath. But today I'd like to explore just letting that pause be a bit longer or two longer, just sending the awareness into those pauses. So it might look a little something like this. An inhale through the nose, filling up through the lungs, and then hold the breath, suspend it, pause it at the top. And then let the breath go. Release it completely. Notice, pause at the bottom, either in or out, just lingering there. Inhale again, filling the lungs. Pausing at the top. And then letting it go. Pausing at the bottom. Explore a few rounds all on your own. The pause can be short, it can be longer.
If at any time that pause becomes uncomfortable, just let the breath flow naturally. But with all the things coming at us quickly, one right after another, I keep noticing this desire, this urge to really pause and rest. And I keep thinking about how, as we move on the mat, there's these lessons that we can take from the mat out into the world. Maybe you've been caught in or remember a conversation with someone and you can feel the heart beating faster, you can feel the aggravation. How would that conversation have turned out if we had just paused before we responded with ugliness? I figure the more we practice here on the mat, the more we can take that out with us. Noticing the pauses when things get uncomfortable. Inviting stillness in. Maybe even settling into the comfort of the stillness, the quiet, the pause. As we move into shapes and hold shapes and let shapes go, there's an invitation to keep coming back to these pauses in the breath. Curious about them, exploring them, noticing what arises when we find them. It's not required. It might add an extra dimension to the yin practice today. We'll follow about 5 more rounds of breath. Recognizing that we all breathe at different speeds, different rates. As your 5th breath escapes, shift the hands around the legs, help support the legs. Maybe lift one knee up at a time. Moans and groans are always welcome. And begin to shift the blanket off away from your body. Feel free to keep it nearby in case the chill in the air would be comforted or settled by that blanket, by that heaviness, by the warmth. And then start to stretch one leg out long on the mat. Reach through with the heel, toes to the sky. And then drag the heel along the mat toward the bum, bending the knee again. Let's do that same thing, same side. Extending, stretching out, lengthening through the leg. And then dragging the heel in again. One more time, this side, please. And then as you're ready, shift to the other side. Feel the muscles engage as we lengthen. Reach through with the heel and then drag the heel back in, shortening the muscles along the back of the leg. 2 more times, please. And then widen the feet a little bit. Just put some space between the feet. And invite the knees to sway side to side. No slower than you think you should. Begin to notice all those sensations along the hip crease. Notice the pressure of the bum against the mat as you sway. The next time the knees lift up, pause there. Shift awareness to the fingertips, inviting the fingers to extend and then to circle in. Take that a few times, lengthening through, curling them in. And then take your non-dominant hand. We're going to massage the fingers of the dominant hand. Just kind of wiggle the fingers from the base of the finger, the palm, up to the tip. And back down again. Maybe a slight squeeze of that space between the fingers as we move on to the next. Invite each finger to get a little bit of love, a little bit of movement, a little bit of shift. Perhaps anticipating that eventually the other hand will get a little bit of love. Take all the time you need. Notice any joints in the fingers that might be affected by the winter, by the cold. Maybe even a little prayer of gratitude here for the ease in which your fingers do move on a daily basis. You might even find a little bit of movement along the palm, a little stretch through the center of the palm. Even through the wrist if that calls to you. And then when you feel complete with that, release the hands. Take a breath or two, just there. We'll make our way to our next held shape. Taking knees over to the right, maybe even shifting the bum out of the way. Lean over into that right arm. We'll come into a little deer twist. You can keep the bolster or the blocks if you'd like, or go without. Sliding the outside of that right thigh up to the short edge, lowering the body down. Resting the chest down to the mat, to the bolster. Feet can be any distance from the bum. Just feel steady and balanced, a little pinwheel motion through the legs. Notice the rotation, the twist through the waist.
Notice the heaviness of the body as it sinks into the support beneath you. And then when you find those just right variations of hands and arms and body, head, settle into the stillness, into the quiet. Noticing the pause within the shape. We know that this practice asks us to find stillness again and again. Stillness through the physical body, softening of the muscles, the sinking into the props. But always know that as time passes, sometimes the body needs to wiggle and adjust into a new stillness. Feel free to do that. Also know that the shapes should never create pain. You've got space. If there's pain in the body, come out. Find a shape that nurtures you. Begin to follow 5 final rounds of breath here. Noticing, feeling the breath. Perhaps even a moment of gratitude for the breath. You are alive. And that's a beautiful thing. As you're ready to move again, I'd like to draw the knees a little bit closer together. And then slide the hands down to the mat. Feel the palms and the fingers press. Start to engage the arms, lifting up. We're going to take the legs and swing them around to frame the bolster. One on either side. They can be wide apart, they can be narrow. Knees can be bent, knees can be straight. And then just pause there for a moment. Keep the arms out wide like the letter T. Let one ear drip down to one shoulder. And then rainbow the top of the head through the sky. Other ear, other shoulder. Let's do that a few more times. Any shifts in the neck and chin, tapping into the sticky parts. Inviting a little bit of relief there. And then lift the top of the head to the sky and shift awareness to the arms. Simply bend an elbow toward the heart, rest it for a moment, and then extend it out. Lengthen back to that letter T. Let's alternate here, exhaling as the elbow bends. Inhaling as the elbow extends. Switching sides. One more each side, please. And then release the arms down. Feel the heaviness through the shoulders. Feel the sensations, the fluid moving from the tops of the shoulders down the arms. Maybe around the bends of the elbows through to the fingertips. And then invite a forward fold, bringing the belly and the chest down. And your bolster, your props, they're adjustable. Feel free to let them become higher, lifting the floor up to the body, or lower down. And then invite the spine just to soften around whatever props you're using. Encourage the muscles of the legs to soften, relax through the ankles and the toes.
As the body lingers in the softness and the stillness, notice the reaction across the mind, through the heart, the emotions, the feelings. Inviting the thoughts to pause, inviting the emotion to find a pause. Maybe again and again, returning to the breath. Noticing the pause and the breath. And to raise those 5 final rounds of breath. Here in our folded dragonfly shape. Anticipating as your 5th breath escapes. Hands slide closer to the body. Feel the texture of the mats. Press into the palms. Lift up from the bolster. Find a little movement with the shoulders, maybe rolling them around and down the back. Maybe it's the neck that wants to move. Maybe you draw some circles in the sky with your nose. We'll make our way into that twisted deer shape. Bring the legs, the left leg over to meet the right. Shift on the mat. So that left thigh comes pretty near to that bolster, the short edge of the bolster. Swing the right leg around behind, roll the belly down. Take all the time you need to adjust and to shift.
Inviting softness through the entire body when you do arrive into that just right shape. Breathe.
Choosing stillness again and again. Inviting time to just wash over you.
In this moment, in this space, practice the pause. Practice being present in that pause. Realizing that there is nothing that you have to do. There's nothing that you have to say. There is no one that you have to be. Begin to follow the spine, running around this breath.
always knowing that we can exit a shape sooner, linger longer. That you're choosing to follow along with my voice and my pace of breath. Shift awareness to the hands. Press the fingertips, the palms down. Gaze through the arms. Lift upright. And then reach around for that right leg. Bring it forward. Find yourself in any comfortable seated shape. Might be an easy pose, might be legs extended. Just take a couple of breaths, resting hands to the lap. Noticing the body's response to the shapes, to the hold, to the time. Notice your response to the pause. You feel fluid moving. You feel an imprint across the cheek where it rested on a prop. How about along the hips and the knees? And invite a little cat and cow movement. Maybe shifting the spine back, rounding through it. And then curling forward. Making space along the chest and the neck. Take that several times. And invite the torso to twirl around like a top spinning around in a circle, inviting elbows, shoulders, and ribs and waist to move organically. Maybe one more circle in this direction. And then exploring those circles, going the opposite way. Next long held shape will be waterfall. You can do that with a bolster or a block, your choice. I'm going to do a bolster. I'm going to set the long edge of the bolster up parallel to the short edge of the mat. When I use a bolster, because it's higher, sometimes I like to sit on the bolster first and then roll down. Maybe you just want to swing the legs over, feel support through the hands, lift the hips. Rest the bony part of the hips onto the bolster and stretch the upper part of the body down to the mat. Feel free to keep a soft bend in the knees or explore stretching the legs out long. We're targeting through the front of the hips, the front of the thighs. Hone in on that bit of spaciousness there. Adjust until you feel it. Knowing that eventually we settle into stillness. We let time pass over us.
Staying present to the pause. Common for the body temperature to drop slightly in these long held shapes. Make yourself comfortable. Maybe a blanket over the body. Begin to follow those 5 final rounds of breath. And as your 5th breath escapes, start to walk the feet closer to the bum. If you feel balanced on the support beneath you, draw one knee in toward the chest, hug the other knee in. It feels really good just to roll side to side, especially if you're on the bolster, it's wider. You might feel a little pressure, massage along the outer hips, the outer glute, along the low back. And then extend both feet up to the ceiling, legs up the wall. We'll take a few rounds of breath here. Feel free to settle into stillness. Sometimes I like to wiggle, point and flex the feet, or pretend like I'm walking on the ceiling. So again, your choice, stillness or a little bit of movement. A fun little transition. Sometimes when we pay really close attention, you find that the body is still, but you feel movement. You start to notice as the inhale comes that the body shifts with the breath. And as the exhale goes, the body shifts with breath. We'll follow about 5 more rounds. Breath. As your 5th breath escapes, start to bend the knees, feet floating slowly toward the mat, letting the feet land. Take the hands to the bolster right by your waist and just press or roll the bolster under the bum toward the heel. Lay the bum down, the low back down. Let the knees knock toward one another. Feel free to widen the feet. A little constructive rest. We'll take one more flowing motion before Shavasana. So the legs are supported and stabilized with that bolster. Knees are coming in. Shift awareness to the arms. Stretch them up toward the sky. Bend the elbows. Catch the opposite arm, elbow, bicep, forearm, whatever you can find. Little typewriter movement here. Elbows are going to go in one direction. Gaze and head will turn in the other. And then bring everything back to center. Let's switch sides. Elbow one direction. Gaze and head the other. Connecting the movement to your breath, flowing side to side. Maybe there's one more sway side to side. And then release the arms. Bring the hands together. Generate a little bit of heat in between the hands, rubbing them. Invite that heat, the palms of the hand to rest over the hearts. You can take one hand to the heart, one to the belly, or both to the heart, or both to the belly. Notice how as you inhale, the heart reaches toward the warmth. Another breath right there. And then bring the palms back together, rub them again, generate a little bit more heat. Next time, use the hands as if they were a washcloth, warming up the space along the forehead, over the eyes, down the cheeks, the jaw, softening all those places of the face that might hold tension. And then separate the knees. You can keep the bolster underneath the knees for a little added support in Shavasana. You can extend the legs long. You can keep them bent. You might prop up underneath the head or throw your blanket all the way down the body. Nestling in. Shavasana is like a pause.
It's a pause between the activeness of class and the rest of the day. Feel really snuggled in this space where we're not alert nor asleep. In this pause where worry and anxiety seem far away. And settle in. Begin to follow those 5 final rounds of that. Here in Shavasana. Maybe adding a bit of movement. Wiggle the fingers and toes, shifting through the hips. Maybe a full body stretch. Eventually, bending through the knees, rolling or kicking the bolster away. Take all the time you need to roll to one side. And then meet in a seated shape. Take a closing breath together.
Circling arms up and overhead, maybe gazing at the thumb, and then sliding the hands down the midline. Pausing at the heart and returning hands to the left, soft tuck to the chin. Just a moment of gratitude for the practice, for the stillness, for the pause. From my heart to yours. Namaste. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here.